fucking funny?
Does that sound fine?
What's the boogeyman?
Matt has an old person moment. What one? Welcome back to the Moonjuice. Fuck. I fucked it up again. I fucked it up again because I fucked it up once already. Okay, folks. There you go. I fucked it up twice. You just didn't get the first take. Fuck. Welcome back to the Moonjuice Horror Metal Podcast, the podcast where we live and breathe heavy metal and horror, but are not afraid to shit on both of them. Holy crap. I fucked that up twice, guys. Twice. I think I only got one take, though, of me fucking it up. But, you know, you probably saw that before you saw this. So, good deal. Holy shit. Okay, so Mike and I went back and did a film from basically our childhood that I'm pretty sure probably a lot of people were expecting that we were going to do eventually. But it is a fucking marathon. It's a fucking marathon to have to sit down and watch this thing because it's like 3 hours and 7 minutes long if you watch it all the way through. And it is a brutal watch if you've watched it once or twice before. But we watch everything before we do the podcast about it just in case there's something that we miss that we want to talk about. But tell everybody what movie this is, Mike.
We're doing It, Stephen King's It from the 90s. You know what? Actually, the majority of people say movie, but I think what a lot of people till nowadays don't know is that the original 1990s is actually a miniseries that was aired on TV.
Yep, on CBS of all places. Yeah.
CBS, exactly. Was actually a pretty big surprise,
Yeah. So the thing about this is a lot of people, I think this movie probably gets a lot of unfair treatment because of that fact. There's even a lot of horror fans that did not know or have seen this and did not know that this was a miniseries made for TV. So not cable, normal TV, which means comparing the book to this is not fair. It's not.
Yeah, of course.
If you know anything about, I mean, it's probably a lot more easy now to get away with things on TV than you used to be. Like if you watch even the History Channel or USA or whatever, there's blood and gore and all that stuff. We've gotten more lenient. But here in 1990, you couldn't see anything like that on TV. And if you were going to see something like that on TV, it was going to be like at 12 o'clock, you know, late at night.
Yeah.
Your parents were awake and all the kids were in bed. That's the only time that.
And everything was edited out the ass, no?
Yeah. And super fucking edited. And I think originally when I saw this, so I was telling Mike before the episode started, so sorry to rehash this, Mike. This was the book that it was a story I was super interested in. And my parents, I don't know what they were thinking, but it's the same thing with Jaws. They were like, okay, you can't see the movie, read the book. So I read the book. The book terrified the shit out of me. It is a fucking scary book. Stephen King, admittedly, if you go back and read what he says about what he was doing at the time that he wrote this, he was on a lot of drugs. So this is like a drug-induced nightmare story from Stephen King. It's extremely violent, very dark, because the subject matter has to do with kids that are being murdered and eaten alive, you know? Like, it's pretty risque stuff even for a book at that time. And so, obviously, they couldn't get away with doing that kind of thing on TV. So they did the best that they could. And honestly, it's only a rough watch if you go into this expecting the book. But if you go into it not knowing anything about the book and you watch this, it's still really good. And I think what really makes it is the acting, not just the cast, but Tim Curry himself. Fucking Tim Curry killed this movie.
Absolutely. I mean, I also agree on that. I mean, the best thing about it, of course, is Tim Curry. I mean, Tim Curry is a legend.
He's
like
dude. He's Pennywise.
What?
Tim Curry is Pennywise for me. Like he's Pennywise.
It is exactly. That's just what I mean. Just like you said, Tim Curry is Pennywise, and this is like the role everybody knows him as. You know, I mean, he have like, of course, he's had so much roles. I mean,
Rocky Horror Picture Show is his pride and joy.
Picture Show, exactly. And I think those are just like the two characters everybody knows him by. And even though I did not like the remakes, and I think Bill Skarsgård played a good Pennywise. I mean, that's like the only thing I cannot criticize about the remakes is Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise. He played that role and he nailed it. No, but it's
completely agree.
Yeah, but it's just Tim Curry is Pennywise. That's just, I mean, he will always be Pennywise, in my opinion. Because that's a little bit what's missing in Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise. Because Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise is just an evil monster. He's just trying to be evil. No? But I don't know. Tim Curry's Pennywise is just funny. Even though you know he's a complete psychopathical serial killer entity monster, whatever, it's just funny to watch him do the things he does. No? Exactly. Yeah.
He's a total troll. He's a total troll. That's why I love him.
Yeah.
Like, so if you compare the two Pennywise, like you said, Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise is an evil fucker. Like he is, but arguably, and this might just be my mind, arguably not as scary as Tim Curry's. I don't think so, because I think the appeal here and the thing about the book with Pennywise himself, right, is in the book, he is a very normal looking clown. And he acts like a normal clown. Like, if you saw him on the street, you'd be like, oh, yeah, it's clown, whatever. So he is appealing to people. And that's how the monster itself gets children, right? And if you keep that in mind, then Tim Curry's version is perfect. Because as by himself, he looks like a normal clown. He's funny. You know, this is somebody that kids would probably run up to screaming to get him to tell a joke. Skarsgård's version, I wouldn't get near that clown, dude. I wouldn't fucking get near that clown because he looks evil as shit. There's nothing cool about that clown or inviting, you know? So, I mean, like you said, it's not Bill Skarsgård's acting chops that don't make the movie. I think the idea of what the clown is and what it represents and how it's portrayed is not done correctly. And that's the case with a lot of horror movies now. Like they kind of miss the point of the original source material. And because of that, it kind of falls flat. I was not, I don't even know if we're doing the remake of it on this podcast. I'm sure we probably will get around to it sometime, right?
Yeah. We'll get around to it at some time, but
it's not something I'm looking forward to because I didn't like them. I didn't like the movies.
No. It was, I don't know. They were okay. It's just pretty much the end. I mean, I'm not sure if you said this on one of the previous episodes. For me, it was just pretty much the end of the second part that just ruined everything for me. Because it's the typical scene, you know, the yippee-ki-yay mother, and then, you know, where where Richie stares into the deadlights. I died laughing at that point. No, because it looks so insanely stupid. And from that point on, I'm going to be honest, I couldn't take anything seriously. Not even the original It series, because every single time Pennywise comes in the screen, I have this scene from the remake in it with Richie yippee-ki-yay mother, and how much this scene alone just totally, destroys any horror effect is I watched my ex, she was horrified of Stephen King, she read the book, as a kid, when she was a teenager, I think, and till nowadays, she has not seen neither the miniseries or the remake because she's just super terrified of it. The book really terrified her, Okay. And I even told her, it's like fair, and I just told my ex, like, hey, don't worry, the movies are child's play compared to the book, and then this is crazy, I specifically showed my ex this scene where Richie goes, yippee-ki-yay, mother. And I told her, watch this. And she started laughing her ass off. And I said, okay, just keep this scene in mind. Then I went back and watched the remake, first 1 and 2 with her. She had no problem. She was not scared for a second. She even went back and rewatched the entire miniseries. Now, she told me that a few weeks back. And she was like, because every single time she said, anything happened, she had this scene in her head. And it just made everything funny for her.
Yeah, I can see that, dude. There was, I don't know, there was a lot more humor in the remakes than there were in this one. In this one, it's very, I'm not going to say it's dry, but it's very more to the point, you know? And the only really funny things that happen, I think Richie has a couple of good lines in there that are kind of funny. And then Pennywise, of course, is a total troll. Like he's less, he's less ominous and less evil and just more of a troll. Like he's there to annoy the fuck out of everybody. The scene in the library that we'll talk about is one of my favorite scenes because that is Tim Curry at his absolute best. He's just being a complete troll, being annoying because he knows that the other character is the only person that can see him. So he's being as loud as possible to keep him from being able to talk to anybody else. And it's a great scene because of that.
Yeah.
But Skarsgård's Pennywise would have never done that. Skarsgård's Pennywise was just an evil fucker, you know? But this movie gets an odd amount of criticism, and I know that you've heard it too, because people are just like, it's not scary. And I have to agree with them. It's not scary, but that's because it was a made-for-TV miniseries instead of a movie, you know? That's not to say that this producer and this director did not do a good job, because they stick as close to the story in the book as they possibly can, while only omitting things that you would not be able to do on TV. So this is the closest version to the book version that you're going to get. And for that, I can praise it. Setting is fantastic. The props are fantastic. The cinematography is great. The writing's great. For a made-for-TV movie, this is actually really, really good, especially for the really early 90s.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So I guess I won't talk about the remake anymore. I guess we'll get to that whenever we end up doing it.
whenever we get around to
Yeah.
doing it. No,
But
I just thought like let's just
go ahead, Mike.
I was just saying like let's just shortly get into the cast. Now, a little bit of confusing thing here is you have like two characters that are being played by two different actors. That's for almost all of the characters. They're like a younger and older version. Okay, of course we've already talked about him. The legend Tim Curry was Pennywise. Then there's Richard Thomas that plays Bill. Tim Reed that plays Mike Hanlon. No, Annetta O'Toole. No, that plays Beverly Marsh. But I'm just gonna call her Martha Kent because she's like she plays Martha Kent. She plays Martha Kent in Smallville. And did you know that she also plays Lana Lang in Superman 3? Yeah. So
I did.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna call
I'm
her
a
Martha
Superman
Kent.
dork. Yes.
Yeah, me too. So I'm just gonna call her Martha Kent.
If you need a quick reminder about this, here's your reminder. Metalheads are just a bunch of fucking comic book dorks anyway, dude. Dungeons and Dragons,
exactly.
Comic books, fucking video games. We're all just dorks. Don't be afraid of metalheads. Yeah. I mean, the most we're gonna do is talk you to death about heavy metal and sci-fi shit. So, cheers.
Yeah, I mean, just for example, if you ever want to piss off a nerd, all you have to do is go out and say, Terminator 3 and 4 are better than Terminator 1 and 2. And those guys knew better of the story timeline than James Cameron did. Then just sit back, grab a beer, and enjoy the show.
It's true. That and a whole bunch of other things you could say to piss everybody off. Basically, just understand with metalheads, if you go into an open room full of us, or you're at a festival or whatever, and you want to wax poetic about like anything sci-fi, just understand you're walking into a room with the cast of The Big Bang Theory. Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
That's it.
We're just all Sheldon. We're all Sheldon. There's not even anybody else. We're just all Sheldon. Sheldon Cooper.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yep. Okay, I think there was also Dennis Christopher, plays Eddie, Richard Mazur playing Stanley, John Ritter playing Ben Hanscon or whatever, I don't know. Okay, then that was pretty much so far for the adult actors, because the same characters. This is just like part one. I mean, for the remake, they separated the story into two different movies. In the original, it's basically one story, one movie, or one storyline that jumps in between the present and flashbacks from the characters. And of course, then there's a child version of the characters. Like they're Jonathan Brandis playing Bill, Brandon Crane playing child Ben, Adam Farazi playing child Eddie, Seth Green. I mean, everybody knows this guy from Buffy.
Yeah, everybody knows Seth Green. Yeah.
Playing child Richie, Ben Heller. And then here comes the biggest surprise, for me. Emily Perkins. Do you remember that actress? She plays child Beverly. She plays in, I know her from Ginger Snaps, because that's one of my favorite all-time werewolf.
Fucking great werewolf movie. Great werewolf movie.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's like the only actual really Werewolf Trilogy I know, and I like all three of them. Even though the third part really story-wise did not have much to do with the others too, I liked all three Ginger Snaps movies. I think they're absolutely great werewolf movies. And that's where I know
I
Emily
mean, if I'm
Perkins
wrong,
from.
the third one takes place in like the Middle Ages, right? And it's their, is it like their ancestors or some shit?
It's their ancestors. I mean, no, I think it's during when the Europeans pilgrimated towards to the States. No, I think it's in the 17th or 16th or 17th century, and it's
Okay.
somehow their ancestors. No, so
Okay.
it's not
Okay.
no the same ginger and the same. I think her name was Bridget. I'm not sure what the character's name was. No.
I was gonna mention that. I'm surprised that you mentioned it. I was gonna say that if you hadn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Good. Okay. Then we have, here's another one. Marlon Taylor, that plays Child Mike Hanlon. Now, we all know this actor. Every Terminator fan is probably going to recognize this guy because he plays Miles Dyson in Terminator 2. and
Yeah,
if you don't know that name, you're not a Terminator fan.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. We have Olivia Hussey, Sheila Moore, and Jared Blanchard. That's pretty much the entire cast. No, I'm just not sure. Do you remember who the actor was? I mean the director. What the fuck am I talking again?
Yeah.
I mean,
So it was produced
directed
by
this
Laura
one?
Mar Television and distributed by Warner Brothers, right?
Yep.
The producer was Laura Mar Television, which is odd, but that's the producer, so it was whatever company. The director was Tommy Lee Wallace, which he's done a few other things, but nothing major, mostly TV stuff, right? And the writer of this was Lawrence D. Cohen. I'm not going to say no name because that's just my ignorance. I've never heard of him before. They've probably done other stuff. Yeah. At the time, probably pretty no name.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah. So
So that's
from that point on, I think we're just, didn't get into the movie. But before that, if you like our content and like our podcast, don't forget to follow us on Spotify. And if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get obviously a notification whenever we upload a new.
Yeah, and what the fuck, dude? We've got like quite a few viewers in a short amount of time, but there's only a few people that make comments about what they want to see us do, right? So there's a few guys that are always like, "Oh my God, do this movie! I want to see you do this movie," and then a couple other people are like, "Please do this movie." But it would be cool to have a pool. So all you guys that regularly watch this that are followers, tell us what fucking movie you want us to do, dude, because we're not scared to do it. I mean, even if it's like really, really drastic shit, we'll do it. I mean, we are going to do the Terrifier movies. So if that's any indication, find something you want us to do and we'll fucking do it. Yeah. Okay. So with no further ado, we'll get into the movie, right? So this one opens up. You get kind of a nice montage at the beginning of like almost like a photo album that kind of set pieces from the movie. Like you get pictures of the characters in black and white photos because the younger version of these characters are kind of living in the 50s, right? So this is right after the Korean
60s. No.
Is it 60s? I thought it was 50s.
Yeah, it's the 60s. Yeah.
Okay, 60s. So it's the 60s, and a lot of the photos that you see are black and white, and they're of the kids, they're of the movie theater that's in the town, which becomes pretty important later. Particularly, I wanted to point this out. I don't know if you caught it, but at the beginning montage, there's a picture of the theater, and there's a picture of the movie that's showing. And the movie that's showing is I Was a Teenage Werewolf, which is a classic black and white werewolf movie that also appears in the film, right?
Yeah.
So you get the montage. Once the montage is over with, you get kind of an open street in the 60s with cars going down the road, people walking, and there's a little girl on a tricycle.
Yeah.
A little girl, kind of riding down the street, and she's coming back to her mom's house. She pulls her tricycle up on the sidewalk going into the house and notices that there's a doll, like one of her dolls, that's kind of just laying on the ground, which is kind of strange. She's like, "Oh, there's my doll." And she goes and picks up the doll. When she picks up the doll, she hears a cackling voice, and it's the classic voice of Tim Curry's character as Pennywise. And I really love his voice in this movie. Like, he sounds like a bar lizard. And if you know what I mean by that, it's like a fucking, like a middle-aged woman or a little bit older woman who spends all of her time in the bar smoking. That's the voice he uses, right? And it's kind of like, "Hey, little girl. Hey, little girl." You know, she looks over.
Just like in case it comes down to Tim Curry's, voice. My favorite line in this is from Tim Curry.
Come on, kiss me, fat boy. Kiss me, fat boy.
I love that line.
Come on, kiss me, fat boy. Yeah. Yeah. That's also a very cool scene. I love that scene because nobody saw it coming. Well, unfortunately, guys, we are going to do this in 2 parts because this is a super fucking long movie. So the episode you're seeing right now is Stephen King's It Part 1. You're going to get a Part 2, and we'll get to that scene in Part 2. We're going to cut it off right in the middle part of the movie. But yeah, his voice is fucking tricky as shit in this film, and I love it.
Yeah.
So this little girl hears that voice, and she looks over, and there's a whole bunch of laundry that's hanging up on a line, and there's sheets and stuff, like your typical horror movie sheets that are hanging up, like kind of like what they did in Halloween, you know. Sheets are hanging up. She thinks she hears something, so she looks that way, and she doesn't see anything. And then the sheet flutters, and she gets a quick view of Pennywise the clown, who looks like a very normal circus clown with a balloon, a very non-threatening, right? And she kind of looks at it, and the sheet goes in front of him again. He kind of looks like he disappears, and then the sheet flows again, and then you see the same clown, except evil. So he goes from normal-looking clown to evil-looking clown, and then you get kind of a POV of what Pennywise sees as he goes towards the girl, right? And this little girl screams bloody murder. You don't see what happens, but you hear the scream. The scream is enough for her. I don't think her mom heard it. I think her mom just came outside to like hang more laundry or whatever. Because in this scene, she's coming out and she's taking laundry down and she's calling her to come into the house. She notices the little girl doesn't answer, so she looks down into the driveway where the tricycle is sitting there. The tricycle the little girl is riding, the wheel is spinning like something ripped her off of it. And so the mom runs down there and sees the tricycle and looks to the right, and we don't see what she sees. So this movie plays off of what you don't see because it can't show it, right?
Yeah, of course.
So obviously what she sees is the mutilated body of her little girl, and she screams bloody murder. Scene cut. The next scene we get are the police have shown up on the scene. They've got it kind of tied up with tape all the way around, like the police tape. It's obviously a murder scene. All the cops are there. This is the 60s, and these guys are dressed like it's the... I don't know why. So there's like a private detective there, and he's got like the typical fedora on with the long trench coat.
The Dick Tracy trench coat, you mean? I always have to think of when I see this kind of stuff. I always have to think of Dick Tracy. Remember that?
It's very Dick Tracy. You're right. It's very like film noir almost. You know what I mean? Like the fedora. Like, oh yeah, that guy's not a normal cop. He's one of them fucking Bogart guys because he's got the fucking trench coat on with the hat. That's how you tell the difference between a cop and a gumshoe, right? At the same time that these guys are investigating the scene, one of our main characters shows up as well. And what is this guy's name like? I forget his specific character's name.
Which one? The librarian. I think his name is Michael. No, but let's just call him the librarian.
Okay, the librarian. Okay. So the librarian shows up, and he's also kind of wearing a trench coat. So you assume that he's also a private detective. But he's not. He's just a librarian. And he's there because he is one of the original crew of kids that we're going to meet later that this whole thing happened to when they were kids. So he is one of the seven losers of the Losers Club. He's also, we'll find this out later, he's also the only one that stayed in Derry. Everybody else left Derry. So everyone that was involved in this whole thing left Derry except for him. He stayed because for whatever reason, he was sure that this thing was going to come back and wanted to watch what was going on, right? So at the crime scene, he finds a picture of Georgie, which we don't know who Georgie is yet, but there's a picture of a young boy, and it's kind of a black and white photo that looks like it came out of a photo album. And that is his hint that this was Pennywise that did this, because there's no other reason why this picture of Georgie would be there.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So the next scene we get after that, we're starting to get introduced to the rest of the Losers Club, right? As adults. The first one is the writer, and I can't remember his name, so I'm just going to call him the writer. How about that?
The writer, yeah, exactly. The writer is pretty good. Yeah.
The writer, yeah. So he's living somewhere else with his girlfriend at the time. He's writing a book. I guess that what we're supposed to take from this is this is kind of Stephen King's character. He does this in all of his books, right? there's one character that's a writer, and they're always making a movie from his book, right? So this guy is here in this place. We don't know where it is, but it's somewhere way away from Derry. He's staying with his girlfriend because he is writing the screenplay for the movie based on his book. And he gets a call from the librarian while he's there. So he's sitting down with his girlfriend to eat dinner. They're talking about the book and about the screenplay, and all of a sudden there's a ring on the telephone. He goes and answers it, and the only thing you hear the person on the other line say is, "Hey, how you doing? It's me." He's back. Immediately, the writer's tone changes. Like, his face changes. He goes from very, like, happy to kind of sad, and he's like, "Oh, shit. He's back. Okay, what do we do?" And the librarian on the other end, who's obviously his friend from childhood, says, "Well, we made a promise. You have to come back. Can you make it back?" And he doesn't say yes or no. He just says, "Okay, I'll have to think about it. Goodbye." And hangs up on him. He goes back into the room with his girlfriend and says, "Hey, something came up, whatever." She's like, "Who is on the phone?" He's like, "It's nobody, but I got to go take care of something." And so he leaves. Now, it's obviously, if you don't know anything about the story, it must have been something bad that happened, because this guy is in the middle of kind of like the peak of his career. They're making a movie out of a book that he wrote. And he's going to just drop everything and leave and go back to his hometown because he made some kind of promise, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we get with that scene, is kind of like he's been notified, so he's going back. Next scene we get is a flashback to him as a kid, right? And the flashback of him as a kid, he's laying in bed and he's sick, probably got the flu or some shit like that. And his little brother, who's Georgie, who is the kid that we just saw in the photograph that the librarian picked up at the crime scene, is standing next to his brother's bed and saying, "Hey, come play with me, come hang out with me." This is the writer as a kid. And the writer's like, "I'm sick, you're going to have to go play by yourself right now. But by the way, I made you a paper boat so that you can take it outside and sail it down the street. So here it is. But first you're going to have to go get the wax because it has to be sealed so that it doesn't like deteriorate in the water." So he tells his brother, "Go down to the basement and get the wax." The kid is obviously not hip about going down to the basement, because this is kind of a throwback to the book, because in the book, a lot of shit happens in the basement. The basement is a very scary place, but they don't do anything with it in this film. It's just kind of a nod to it. So the nod is, you got to go down to the basement. He goes down to the basement, gets the wax, comes back. They coat the boat in wax, and Georgie puts on his rubber duck fucking outfit that every kid wore back then that went out and played in the rain. He takes the paper boat outside. And this scene is kind of a staple scene, right? This is that scene that they also completely redid in the remake, almost scene per scene, exactly the same as they did it here.
Yeah. This is like the it scene. This scene is, everybody knows it. If you know,
if you haven't seen the movie, you have at least seen a video of this scene, right? Yeah. So Georgie's outside in his rubber duck costume running down the street, and the fucking paper boat is kind of on the side of the street going down where the water pulls up, because, there's a lot of Americans watching this. It's not necessarily the same in Germany, but the streets are built kind of at a slope. So on the sides, you get gutters where it collects all the rainwater, and that's where the boat is traveling. And it's traveling down the gutters. He's running down the street chasing it. All of a sudden, the boat takes a sharp turn and goes directly into the gutter. And these gutters are deep. Like, they're big enough for a couple grown men to hang out there, He loses the boat down this gutter and kind of leans over and wants to see where it's gone, because I don't think he thinks he's going to get it back, because these things are deep. But anyway, he looks into the gutter and he doesn't see the boat. And all of a sudden, bam, fucking Pennywise pops up, right? His face pops up out of the gutter and he's like, "Hey, little boy." Yeah. He's like, "Do you want a balloon?" It's super fucking creepy. I'll give it to Tim Curry. Like, this scene is great. I almost wish they hadn't shown the clown before this, because if this had been the actual first introduction of the clown, it would have been even better, because this is creepy as shit. It makes no sense. You're looking down into a gutter and there's a fucking clown in the gutter. That's fucking weird as shit to begin with. But then he's like, "Hey, you want a balloon?" And he's like, Georgie's like, "No, my parents tell me not to talk to strangers, so I don't talk to strangers." Pennywise is like, "Well, I'm Pennywise the dancing clown. And you are Georgie. So we're not strangers anymore, right?"
Yeah.
Great. I love the dialogue is fantastic. Georgie says, yeah, I guess we're not strangers anymore, but I have to go. And Pennywise is like, "Wait a minute, without this?" And he holds up the paper boat. that he's had down in the sewer. And Georgie's like, okay. And he's like, come on, Georgie, take it. Take it. So he's holding the paper boat. He doesn't reach it out for Georgie to grab. He's holding it right down near his face so that Georgie has to reach into the sewer. Of course, tell your kids not to talk to strangers. Really doesn't do a whole lot. He reaches his arm down in there and he says, the clown says, yeah, they all float down here, and you'll float too. And when he says that, he grabs the kid's arm and we don't see it. Again, made for TV movie. But if you read the book, you know that he bites the kid's arm off and murders him, right? So he pulls the kid down in the sewer. The only thing that you see is the clown's face with these jagged, nasty fucking teeth. And the camera gets closer and then it fades to black. So you know the kid's dead. Probably the most terrifying scene in this movie, I would say, right?
Yeah. Even in the remake. Yeah, this is like the one scene I would say that the remake done right, because this scene I would say I like both in the original and in the remake. I think they're both good scenes. Yeah.
This one was done absolutely right in both movies. The remake obviously is gory because it was a movie, but this is, you don't get to see it. Sometimes what you don't see is worse than what you do see, though, and that's a good argument. Now, fast forward a little bit, we get the same family. The writer is a kid and his parents, and they're obviously not doing well because Georgie was just recently murdered. The writer goes into Georgie's room, which is a place that his parents had told him not to go, but he goes in there anyway because he wants to see a picture of Georgie. So he grabs the family photo album out and kind of leafs through it until he finds a picture of Georgie and looks at it. As he's looking at the photo starts bleeding profusely, just blood pouring out of the photo. This freaks him the fuck out, so he slams the family photo album and throws it across the room, which is honestly what I would have done because that's fucking weird. The book is sitting in the corner, continues to pour blood all over the floor. This is the first time that you notice that nobody else sees the blood or the things that are happening except for these kids. So he throws the book across the room, blood's all over the floor. He screams, his parents come running in, and they don't know what's going on. They look over in the corner, and all they see is the book. They pick up the book, and they don't notice the blood that's everywhere, and they put it back on the shelf. His dad's really pissed off at him, and he's like, I told you never to come in Georgie's room, and I never want to see you in Georgie's room again. Stay out of here. And the purpose of that scene was to show everyone that the kids see everything, but the parents don't. And this is also something that's a point of contention, not just in the movies, but also in the books, right? Because they talk about the fact that the character of Pennywise not only has a physical form that can affect physical things, he also has the ability to make people forget things. He also has the ability to make people see things and other people not see things. He's kind of like a cancer that grows in a society, and that's what's happening here. He infects adults and affects their ability to be able to do anything about bad things that happen. He makes it to where they can't see things when other people can see it. Just basically an overall overreaching character into the daily lives of everybody in Derry. The next thing we get is we're back at the writer's house when he's an adult. He's arguing with his girlfriend about the fact that he's got to leave. He's got to go back. She's asking him questions about why he has to leave. Basically, all he can tell her is that he made a promise and he has to go. So he leaves, right? The next scene we get is the next character. Dude, I got to get these characters' names down, man, because I can't keep giving them names. I would call this guy Mr. Beard because he has a pretty impressive beard for the 90s. But what's the actor's name? Ben. Ben's his name.
Ben, yeah.
Bearded Ben, right?
Bearded Ben.
So Ben is
Called Bearded
something.
Ben, yeah.
I'm not really sure what Ben is. Yeah, I'm not really sure what Ben is. There's a couple of hints that he may be like a musician or he may be an actor.
I'm not
They don't
sure.
really say.
Artist or something. He's I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what he does. He's some kind of artist or builder or I don't know. He's a rich guy. Yeah.
And kind of a piece of shit too. But whatever. Anyway, he doesn't turn out to be a piece of shit. It's just that this scene kind of paints him that way. He's your typical rich, successful, always in the spotlight kind of guy. He's getting in a taxi from an award show where he won some type of prestigious award for whatever it is that he does. He picked up a woman while he was there. He's taking her home in the taxi to his house. Once he's back at his house, they're about to have sex and get it on, and he gets a phone call, right? And of course, it's the librarian again. Yeah, the librarian tells him the same thing. He says, hey, he's back. Ben says, are you sure? And he's like, yes, positive. Are you going to come back? This guy doesn't waste any time in saying yes. Like, he is coming back. He said, yes, I'm on my way, right? So he leaves, and as he's leaving, we get a flashback of his life as a kid. Now, Ben as a kid was kind of a little fat boy, right? And he gets teased for that relentlessly, right? So what we get here, and the story's kind of told throughout the movie, and to piece it all together, you really have to listen. But his dad died in the Korean War. His mom kind of went to pieces because of that. And so he moved back to Derry, or he moved to Derry with his cousin, which is basically his cousin and his mom. I don't think there's a dad. I think it's just the mom and the kid. So he moves back into their house. He's not really treated well there either. The cousin is kind of a little jerk and calls him fatty and all these other names, and basically says, we didn't really want you here. It's just that my mom says it's our Christian duty to take care of you because your parents went crazy or your dad's dead or whatever. Well, fucking asshole, right? But he's staying with them. His first day at school is what we get to see here. He goes to school, immediately starts getting picked on by the school bullies. Everybody calls him fatty, mistreats him, all this other stuff. Really feel bad for this kid, honestly.
Yeah, it sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks. I didn't like this kind of behavior when I was a kid, man. Like, when people picked on other people in school, I fucking could not stand that. The only people that I picked on were the bullies. I picked on the bullies. I didn't pick on the people that
Me too.
everybody else
Yeah.
picked on.
Me too. How I picked on the bullies? They're like, I don't know. I kind of got picked on in elementary school. No, but that changed after the 4th or 5th grade. I developed a very strong hatred towards those people, and I usually started bullying kids that were bigger than me and stronger. And
Exactly what I did.
And yeah, so it was kind of weird. One of the main reasons why I did not get bullied in school is because the other kids thought I was a total fucking psycho. Because I usually went and beat up like other guys that were like double my size. They were fucking terrified of me.
I didn't. I was always kind of like tall and gangly, like not a whole lot of meat on me at all until I was probably 14. And when I hit 14, I got my growth spurt, and everybody that picked on me before that didn't pick on me anymore. And then I went after the bullies that were picking on everybody else that had not quite filled out yet. And so that was a lot of fun. This kid doesn't stand a chance at this school, dude. Like, he gets bullied everywhere he goes, even by the girls. Like, the girls are bullying him as well. He's in class. He introduces himself. The main school bully is, of course, in the same classroom as his. Calls him names and all sorts of shit until he sits down. He gets the bully in trouble, and the teacher tells the bully, get outside, go to the principal's office. That's what you get for picking on other kids. The bully turns around and points at him and says, you're fucking dead, right? You're dead because you just got me in trouble. Bully leaves the classroom. Ben goes outside, and he immediately meets the female character of the movie, which, what is her name again? Beverly. Beverly. Yeah. So he meets Beverly outside. Beverly is obviously kind of like a good-hearted kid. Like, she saw what happened. Yeah. She introduces herself to him. She's very nice to him. She says, hey, you might not know anybody here, and I realize you're new, but you have a friend. I'll be your friend, whatever. Of course, this kid has not has probably not had a whole lot of girls pay him any attention because he is kind of a bigger kid. He immediately falls in love with Beverly like that.
Yeah.
So he starts to make up a poem in his head that he wants to write her because he's basically so in love with her now. And so he writes her a love poem, but not right now. That's later. Right now, he starts walking home from school, and he's kind of going down towards, he's like skipping a street into like a gully to get to the other street. And as he's doing that, the bullies notice him, the one that got kicked out of class, right? And so the bully sees him, and they start taking off after him. This little fat kid is running about as fast as he can. Yeah, which is not very fast, right? So he hauls ass down to the gully. There's a drainage pipe that's kind of sticking out of the side of a wall that's in the dirt. And he goes and hides in the drainage pipe, which is probably the only place there is to hide, because otherwise he would have had to climb up the other side of the street, and there's no way he's going to make it up there before the bullies get to him. So he hides in the sewage pipe. The bullies don't see him, but there are two other young characters that are down at this gully that are building a dam. They're like kids, right? If you remember being a kid and there being a source of water anywhere near you, you maybe kind of wanted to build a dam so that you could pool up the area. That's a pretty typical thing that kids do. So these kids are down there doing that. They're not very good at building a dam. One of these kids, by the way, is also the writer, the one who just lost his brother, Georgie.
Exactly, Ben. Yeah.
And the bullies show up. They kick down their dam, pick on him a little bit. One of the kids is an asthmatic. Cannot remember his name right now, but he's one of the 7. Huh?
Eddie is his name.
Eddie. Yeah, Eddie. So we meet Eddie. Eddie is an asthmatic. He's a little bit sick. He has an inhaler. Unfortunately, his inhaler is completely out of juice at this point. And so the bullies mess with them a little bit, realize that they can't find Ben, and then leave. When they leave, Ben comes back out of the pipe because he realizes the bullies are gone, introduces himself to the other 2 kids. Eddie's having an asthma attack, so the writer basically tells Ben, hey, stay with him while I go get his medication because he's out. Ben says okay and stays with him, and the other kid goes to get his medication. They sit there and talk for a little while about kind of like each other's background and where they come from. You kind of start to get a little bit of Eddie's story because he says that my mother says I'm sick. I'm not very well. I have to have this thing because I have really bad asthma. She doesn't want me to have a lot of friends because if I have friends, then that exposes me to germs, and she's worried about me getting sick all the time. So this is your typical young kid who is always sick because his mother or his parents have put it in his head that he is a sickly kid. Everybody's known that kid, right? It's debatable whether or not this guy actually has asthma too. I think this is something that his mom comes up with. So he automatically thinks he's sick. So the other kid comes back with his new inhaler, gives it to him. He uses it. All of a sudden, he's fine again. The 3 start talking about the dam that they were building. Ben is like, hey, your dam sucks. You don't know how to build a dam. So here's how you build a dam, and I'll help you build the dam. So now instantly these guys are all friends, right? And so that's your 3 characters, 3 of the 7 that we're going to meet. The next scene you get is the one where Ben goes back home and gets bullied by his family that he's staying with. It was kind of a sad scene. He decides that's not where he wants to be because it sucks at home. So he comes back down to where he met the other 2 kids earlier and hangs out there. While he's there, he hears a voice. And when he hears the voice, he looks over to where the voice is coming from, and it's from a big sewer treatment facility that's down in a swamp. So the treatment facilities to a sewer, at least like in the northern United States, are kind of like they always put them in a swamp or in an area that's way away from everybody else because it stinks, right? And it's in the swamp. He hears the voice. He looks over that way. He sees the sewer treatment plant, and then he notices his dad, who's standing in the middle of the swamp in uniform, because we know his dad died in the Korean War. He was shot down. He was a pilot. So it's an Air Force uniform, and he's standing there calling Ben's name. He says, Ben, I'm fine. I'm here. This is where I live now, pointing to the sewer treatment plant. This is where I live now. You should come stay with me. Ben is obviously extremely confused by this. And I don't think he buys it at all. Like, he runs down there a little bit just to...
What's interesting about this scene, is while like Ben sees his dad, just like Matt said, here's where he lives now. It cuts between Ben and his father. The interesting thing that I like about this scene specifically, I thought it was very well made, is every time it cuts back to the dad, you have like one piece more of Pennywise costumes showing out. No? And occasionally his voice cracks and it switches between his dad's voice and Pennywise's voice. What I think this scene specifically is brilliant. I like it.
It's great. Yeah. The fact that they do that and they had they kind of had the forethought to do that is brilliant. And then, so you're tripped out by that part of it first. And then his dad slowly changes into Pennywise every time he flashes back, like you said. And then you see the full Pennywise with balloons, and then Pennywise disappears. And Ben's like, what the fuck? Did I imagine that? And all of a sudden, you get this fucking zombie whose fucking rotting arm comes out of the water and grabs his foot. Right? Yeah. Like, completely unrelated scene-wise, but it works so well because you don't expect it. Zombie's arm comes out, it's like bones and rotting flesh, grabs his foot, and he's like, you belong here with us. We all float down here, and the zombie's trying to drag him back in the water, right? Yeah. We don't actually see what happens with the zombie, if it just disappears or whatever, because it cuts back to adult Ben in his apartment, drunk because he just got back from this award show. And this was obviously all a flashback that you just saw of his life, right? Uh, he's standing kind of on top of the building that he lives in on some scaffolding up top. He probably already told the girl to go home because he wasn't in the mood. And he's standing up there drinking even more. And he's like, what's happening to me? And this scene, they don't really mention it, but what's happening is all the memories are coming back because Pennywise lives off of fear. And if anybody that he wants to eat or anybody that he's bothered in the past leaves Derry, they lose all memory of what happened. And only when they hear something about the instance that happened when they were kids do core memories start coming back. So he's up there and he's like, what am I remembering? Where's this coming from? And it's because the memories are starting to come back because Pennywise has caused them to not be there anymore. That's the last scene we get with Ben right now. We already know he's probably on his way back home because he promised he was going to come home. The next scene we get is with the girl, right? As an adult, Beverly. So Beverly
Martha Kent.
is, huh? Yeah.
Martha Kent.
Martha Kent, right. We're going to call her Martha Kent. You're right. At least the adult version of Beverly is Martha Kent. So she obviously works, I'm assuming, at like a high fashion.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something. I mean, it's all about high fashion. I think she's a designer, right?
Yeah.
She's a very pretty woman. She's in business attire, standing there in front of where she works. Her boss or partner, I'm assuming partner, because he's not her boss. Otherwise, he would be treating her like absolute shit. Because when you see this guy's personality, he's a complete fucking scumbag. Like, this guy sucks. I hate this guy. And I remember seeing this movie when I was 11. I'm like, oh, I wish I was big enough to kick that dude's ass. And now I am big enough to kick his ass. And I saw the movie again and I'm like, yeah, I really want to kick that guy's ass. This guy sucks. He talks to her like she's trash. He treats her like she's an idiot. This is your typical good-looking, smart woman who doesn't have much of a self-esteem because of the way that she was raised. And of course, she got with a guy, thankfully she hasn't married him, but she got with a guy who is just like her dad, who mistreats her, treats her like she's dumb. Just your typical jerk, right? So he walks in and he's like, hey, baby, we got a meeting downstairs with these Japanese guys who are going to make us a lot of money because we're going to sell them our product. I need you to bring your pretty face downstairs with me, and we're going to sell this product to them, right? And she's like, okay. She's obviously very unsure of herself, and he knows that, and he's taking advantage of her because of that. He says, yeah, and by the way, don't contradict me in front of anybody else here ever again, because she kind of contradicted him when he came in. She didn't mean to, but she did. Of course, he noticed it. Don't ever fucking do that again. Asshole. They go downstairs to where these businessmen are. They walk up, and in typical fashion of anybody who's in this kind of fucking relationship, this guy is only in charge behind closed doors. When he brings her downstairs, she introduces everything. She's got all the power. She's the face of the organization. He just kind of stands back like a scared little boy. Obviously, this meetup with these Japanese businessmen went really well because the next thing we do is we see them at home and they're celebrating because they got the contract, right? And you get the feeling they got the contract just because of how good she is at her job, right? This fucking uncultured swine that she is with keeps going back to the fridge to pull out really expensive bottles of champagne, pop the cork off of them, and just start drinking out of the bottle. Fucking uncultured piece of shit, dude. I fucking hate everything this guy does. I fucking hate this character. While he's going to the fridge and he's popping another bottle of champagne, she gets a phone call. Of course, just like everybody else, it's the librarian. And he says, hi, it's me. He's back. Her face immediately changes from happy to scared. And she's like, are you sure he's back? And the librarian says, yes, I'm positive. Are you going to come back? And she says, yes, I'm coming back. So she gets off the phone with him. Her boyfriend that she lives with is coming back from the fridge with his fucking bottle of champagne that he's drinking out of. And he's like, hey, what the fuck, babe? What's going on? She's like, I'm leaving because I made a promise and I gotta go. He's throwing a big fit about it, dude. Like he's basically telling her she's a piece of shit. She's useless. And if she leaves right now, he's not going to be there when she gets back. She makes the smart decision and doesn't give a fuck and leaves. Good for her, right? So she leaves and she gets in a taxi. When she gets in the taxi, she's talking to the taxi driver. And she's not really given a whole lot of clues about her life or what's going on with her right now, other than the fact that she really wants to get the fuck out of here. And that's basically what she tells him. And as she says that, we cut back to the past where Beverly is a young girl and she's living in the house with her dad.
Mhm.
By the way, one thing I didn't mention is the guy that she just left back at the hotel room pulls out a belt and says he's going to beat her, right? And that's the last thing we see before she gets in the taxi. So we get this scene of her back home. She's with her dad. She's making the food and cleaning the house. So we get the idea that she lives with her father and she takes care of everything in the house because she's a female and her father is expecting her to do everything. So she says, Dad, dinner's ready. Come get dinner. Dad's like, okay, I'll be there. There's a ring at the doorbell and Beverly goes to answer it. Nobody's at the door, but there's a piece of paper kind of on the floor in front of the door. And she picks it up and brings it back inside, opens the envelope and starts reading it. And it's a poem that's been written by Ben, who Ben wrote this for her because he's completely in love with her and left it on the front steps. He's in the bushes watching her pick up this envelope. She goes in the house and starts reading it. Her mistake was reading it aloud because the minute she started reading it, it was obviously kind of like a love poem to her. Her dad hears it, walks into the room, and is like, what are you doing? And she hides it behind her back real quick. Dad's like, what do you got there? She's like, nothing. He's like, give me that shit. Takes the letter from her, starts reading it, realizes it's a love poem. And basically, this part in the book was a lot worse than this. In this, he just says, oh, you're not even 12 years old and you're already hanging out with some guy, blah, 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 blah. In the book, he goes in. In the book, he basically beats her, calls her a slut and a whore the whole time he's beating her up. Just a really fucking terrible guy. They showed you what they could show you for a made-for-TV movie. But the idea is she's with an abusive father who's an alcoholic, who mistreats her, beats her, calls her names. Just a really terrible way to grow up. He screams at her, calls her more names, and she's like, this situation is very volatile, so I'm leaving. So she runs out of the house as quick as she can. Immediately, Ben meets her in the street, and she's like, oh, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. She's obviously sad. She's crying. Ben does not tell her that he's the one that wrote the letter, probably because he's, a little shy.
Yeah.
But he's like, hey, whatever's going on, it's obviously bad, so why don't you come hang out with me? I'll introduce you to my other friends. We're building a dam, because he's hanging out with the other two guys building a dam. So he brings her down there, and this is where you get all four meeting up as kids. You got the writer, and then Ben, Beverly, and what's the other guy's name?
What? Eddie?
Huh?
Huh?
What's what kid's name? The asthmatic kid.
Eddie, of course. Eddie. It's Eddie.
Eddie, right. Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm terrible with names, dude. I got hit in the head too many fucking times. So he meets all them, or she meets all them. They accept her, and they start building the dam. And all of a sudden, two other characters show up. So all of them meet up. I'm going to call Seth Green's character, even though his name is Richie, I'm going to call him Seth Green.
Yeah.
So they all meet up. They all like each other. They seem to hit it off pretty well, and they all start building the dam. And to be quite honest, if you're watching what they're doing, they honestly probably had an actual construction worker on scene showing these kids how to do this, because this is not something every kid would know how to do. Like, they're actually building a real dam, like something that you would put up to keep water inside of a tributary. And they're doing a pretty good job. So all of a sudden, they get the area flooded because the dam works, and so now they've got their own natural pool down there. And they're all really fucking excited about it when they're done. And everybody's kind of happy. This is like a high point in the movie. And this is right before everything starts to go really south.
Yeah.
So next scene, we get Beverly is coming back home to her dad. And this scene is one of those that sticks out in the book too. Like, this was a pretty pivotal scene in the book. She comes home. Her dad's a drunk, so he's sitting in front of the TV watching the news, already drunk. She's in the bathroom. She's about to brush her teeth. And she starts hearing voices coming out of the drain, right? You remember the scene, Mike. Like, this is fucking creepy. And they actually do this well in the remake as well.
Yes. Yeah. But this is the one scene that's way worse than the remake, I have to say. Yeah.
There was only so much they could do with this, man. I mean, like, if you know anything about these TV, they rated something by the amount of blood that was used. And
it's
so
ridiculous. I mean, I understand
is
violence,
ridiculous.
but I mean, it is. Yeah.
One sec. I had to get another beer.
Okay.
Yeah. So violence is one thing, but I never understood the rating system for TV shows with blood, because the only way that this scene is effective is if there's a shit ton of blood used, because it's supposed to be kind of a shocking scene.
Yeah, but how it is, it's just like the rating and the editing and the censoring thing in the States. I mean, it's just like, they're even worse when it comes to nudity.
I mean,
You know, I mean, that's why.
Well, yeah, I know. We talked about this in another
What?
episode with Braveheart, man. Like the two
Yeah.
different versions of
Yeah.
that movie between our two countries are like two completely fucking different movies, right? Yeah. But so she starts hearing voices out of the drain, and the voices start to introduce themselves, and they're the names of every other kid who have died in Derry at this particular time. So in the last probably couple months. Right? But they start introducing
Yeah.
themselves as the names of the dead kids, and then they say, "We're all dead, and you're going to join us too." Fucking terrifying. And then when that happens, a balloon kind of comes out of the drain, and
And then
it's
pop.
getting bigger and bigger, and she's staring in like horror at this balloon, and then it pops. And when it pops, blood goes everywhere. All over the fucking walls, all over the mirror, all over the sink. She screams bloody murder. Her dad runs in, who's not in a really good mood and is pretty abusive again. He's like, "What the fuck are you yelling at?" She's like, there's." He's looking at the sink and he doesn't see the blood, even though there's blood everywhere. So again, this is a callback to the other scene we saw with the family album when the parents didn't see the blood. Everything in the room is covered in blood. The dad doesn't see it. She realizes this quick because Beverly's a pretty smart kid. And she says, "Dad, there was a spider in the drain and it came out of the drain and then it went back in the drain. I think he's gone now." And Dad's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, these pipes are really old and they lead back to that fucking big sewer that nobody goes into anymore," which is a hint to where Pennywise lives, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so once that scene is over with her dad being really shitty to her again, we see her back in the taxi cab. She's crying in the taxi cab and is on her way back home to Derry. Now, keep in mind, she's the only one that we've actually seen get into a taxi to head back to Derry. Everybody else has said they're going to come, but we haven't seen them get on a taxi. The next scene we get is with the asthmatic kid, which that's what I'm going to call him from now on. Asthmatic kid, right?
Asthmatic kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Asthma
Asthmatic
boy.
kid, except he's an adult, right?
Yeah.
And did you
call,
think
you can call him Asthma Boy.
Asthma Boy? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Asthma Boy. So Asthma Boy is grown up,
Yeah.
and not much has changed.
Same thing. Same thing going on with him. Yeah. Yeah. His life has not changed at all. You know, and it's just like, just the only thing is that he's now an adult, of course, but still he has his overprotective mom that still does not want him to leave the house.
So what you get from this is maybe he was able to convince his mom to leave Derry because obviously they don't live in Derry anymore. But his mom still runs his fucking life. Like you said, she lives with him if he gets a fucking phone call. And this guy owns his own goddamn business that's successful. Like he's a smart guy. He owns kind of like a shuttle service for VIPs. And so this was in the book as well. And they didn't put it in the movie, but he is kind of VIP shuttling several very, very important people, including people in the government at the time. So this is a highly, highly paid company. So he's doing very well. And the house that he lives in with his mom is a mansion. So his mom just basically moved in with him on his success and tells him where he can and can't go still. Whatever. So he gets a call while he's there with his mom. And of course, it's the librarian, right? And he says, "Hey, I don't have a whole lot of time to talk. I just need to tell you that he's back." And he, of course, says, It's funny. All of them know exactly what he's talking about, too. Nobody has to say anything else other than he's back. This guy, the asthmatic kid
back,
says,
no?
well, what? It's back. Right.
No,
it's back.
Actually, it's back, yeah.
He says, "Are you sure?" And the librarian says, "Yes, I'm sure. Are you going to come back?" And he says, "Yes." Wastes no time, goes outside, gets in the car with, which is probably the person that works for him, who drives shuttles back and forth to these VIPs. He says, "You're going to take me back to Derry right now." And so that's what happens. He travels back to Derry. Next scene we get is him as a kid with the rest of his friends that we've already met. So everybody that was working on the dam are now at the movies. And I love this scene because they are showing the movie that was actually one of my favorites when I was a really young kid. Like this movie, I Was a Teenage Werewolf, was in black and white.
Yeah.
And if you remember the story, it's one of the classics. It's not The Wolf Man, but it was another movie that kind of coattailed the success of that movie. And it was actually really good.
Yeah, it was kind of basically just at the time a modernized version of Wolfman, told from the perspective that Wolfman was now a teenager, more or less.
Right. And if you remember, this is interesting horror movie trivia right here. But if you remember the original Wolfman, his name was, what was it? Larry Talbot, right?
Yeah, Mr.
The
Talbot.
character in this movie is Lawrence Talbot. So they kept the name, except they made it Lawrence because he's a kid. He's a teenager. So all the teachers are calling him Lawrence instead of Larry Talbot. But also a great film. The makeup in this film was arguably better than the original Wolfman too. Like they did a good job. The creature actually looked pretty scary. And so all these kids are in the movie theater watching this movie. They're on the top balcony watching the movie in the movie theater. Beneath them are the bullies on the second row. And I don't think they know the bullies are down there. So all the bullies are on the bottom, they're on the top. Richie accidentally, because I think Richie's an ADHD kid. He's got to be, right?
Yeah.
There's no excuse for this guy to act this way. He's extremely hyperactive. He's always moving around. He's always got his mouth open. He's always making a fucking joke. He kicks his soda off the top balcony and it lands in the lap of the bullies downstairs, right? Big fucking mistake. The bullies turn around and look up and realize whose coat this was that landed in their lap. And they immediately look up and they're like, "You're fucking dead." And so these kids haul ass out of the movie theater as quick as they can because they know the bullies are coming upstairs to fuck them up. They go back to the area where they were building the dam, which is in the woods, which we're going to find out that's kind of always going to be their meetup spot, no matter what happens, right? So they go into the woods. They're hanging out. They've successfully gotten away from the bullies, and they're all just kind of talking, I think, not really saying too much anything. Kind of lost on the scene, actually.
What do you mean, lost on the scene? No, they're basically just talking, and then they're walking through the woods, and then it cuts back to them, walking through the streets because they're now in front of Eddie's house. No, I think because they wanted to pick up Eddie.
Right.
For to play, and then his mom comes out, and he's like, "Oh no, Eddie can't come out because he'll get your germs and stuff like that."
Right. That's what it was. Okay, I knew something happened here, but I couldn't remember exactly what it was. So they all met up out in the woods like they always do, and then they go to Eddie's house because they want him, like you said, to come out. His mom's like, "No, he can't come out and play because he's gonna get your germs." More of this fucking helicopter mom germaphobe bullshit. So she turns the kids away. They go back. She tells him, this is the next morning. She tells Eddie, "Remember, no showering at school. You can't shower with the other boys because you're going to get their germs and you're going to get sick." Right?
Yeah.
So the next scene we see is Eddie at school. Recess is over with. And all the kids are running to the shower room, and he's not going. He's trying to slip past the coach, which this is the coach that we were talking about earlier, who is in The Fly 2, the really shitty security guard.
Exactly.
It gets fucked up. Yeah. I still can't remember this actor's name, but I love him.
I know. The actor is great. And this is like, he always kind of plays assholes, this actor. I mean, every movie I've seen him in, he's assholes. But this is like the one movie I remember him where he's just a normal guy. Apparently, what I can see now is just a normal dude, And
he's not being mean to him either. Like he's trying to sneak past him, but he stops Eddie and lets all the other kids go ahead to where they're long gone before he talks to him. And he says, "Hey kid, this is over. You have to take a shower, and you know that. So get in there and fucking wash your ass, right?"
I mean, but all the time I think, when it comes to the coach, it also kind of feels like the coach kind of knows that this kid somehow feels uncomfortable around others, So he extra stopped them. It gave me over this vibe for this coach, that this coach specifically done that. So the other kids would be out because somehow he knew that this kid apparently didn't feel comfortable around others.
He knows he's not a jerk. Otherwise, he would have busted him out in front of all the other kids, and he didn't do that. You're probably right, though. This is probably the only fucking movie where this guy is not a jerk.
The only movie I've ever seen him where he's not a complete fucking asshole.
Because I need to get the actor's name because I feel like he's a coined actor specifically for roles like this because the other most recent movie that I have seen him in, and this is not a recent movie. This is probably, I don't know when Freddy versus Jason came out, but it was probably like over 23 years ago.
It was the early 2000s.
Yes. Yeah, early 2000s. Yeah. So he was the chief of police of Elm Street Police Department for Freddy versus Jason. and he's a total fucking jerk in that movie too. Yes, like
As usual.
so I don't know how well you remember that movie, but there's one new cop on the force who just showed up and he's working at Elm Street at
Yeah.
the police department, and he realizes that something is odd, and he realizes that the other police are trying to hide something. And so he's like, "Hey, you know what? This murder that just happened sounds exactly like Fred Krueger that happened, years ago, all the child murders. I think we should look into this." And the police chief like puts his arm on his shoulders and sits him down, and he's like, "We don't fucking say that name here, and you're never going to say it again. And if you do, I'll fire your ass so quick." Like, he's a real fucking jerk in that film, too. But that's kind of what this guy does. He plays shitty roles like that, where he has to be an asshole. Anyway, so Eddie is sent to the showers, right? So I can also say this scene right here is very, very, very tame compared to the book. In the book, there were walls of blood everywhere. Just like the entire shower was full of blood, and there were dead bodies on the floor and all sorts of crazy shit. They don't do any of that here. Instead, what we get is Eddie's in the shower, and while he's in there, he notices that all the shower's heads are starting to extend from the wall and come to the middle, which causes him to have to come to the middle of the room too. And the water is also being turned from cold to extremely hot. So he can't stand under the water or else he'll get scalded, right? So the shower heads are kind of moving him towards the center of the room where a drain is. And from the drain, he hears Pennywise's voice. Pennywise calls out to him and says, "You belong down here with us where we all float, blah, blah, blah." Eddie has no choice but to stand right next to the drain. Pennywise's like white gloved hand comes out of the drain. And it's kind of a funny part. He's like, "Well, I need to fix this. Give me a minute." And he puts his other hand out and stretches the hole out to where he can fit through it. We get kind of a claymation version of the floor being pulled apart so he can come up. He comes out of the top and kind of puts his elbow there like this and looks at him, and he's like, "Oh, look at you getting all clean." And this is your perfect fucking case of Pennywise not being scary, but just being a fucking troll, dude.
Yeah,
Clown's a fucking troll.
I love it. It's just the way he acts, just like a total fucking dick and not taking anything seriously. No, I love it. I love Tim Curry's Pennywise. It's the best. Yeah.
Oh, it's the best. And honestly, it's the closest to the book. Like I said, like this is a very accurate portrayal of how he was in the book. He was a wisecracker and a troll. He wasn't always evil. He comes out, makes a couple of jokes. I mean, I'm not really sure what any kid would be thinking at this point. Probably be scared to death, which obviously Eddie is, but it's hard to be scared to death because Pennywise is just cracking jokes. Like he's being a troll. He's making jokes, and he's scared to death. And then it flips back to Eddie to where you see Eddie's face, and then cuts immediately back to Pennywise, and now Pennywise is scary Pennywise again. He's got these giant, jagged teeth and this monster-looking face, and Eddie hauls ass out of there as quick as he can, as anybody would. It's a mystery to me why I get it in the story. He scares the kids because that seasons the meat, right? So kids taste better to this entity if they're scared. I get that, right? But he spends most of this movie scaring these kids to death and not eating them.
Yeah.
Like that's what he does.
Because it's not only a physical thing, like he physically has to feed. It's more a spiritual energy thing. The more afraid people are, the more stronger he becomes. Like it's just like he feeds off of their flesh for sustenance, but his entire power, like his supernatural entity abilities, come from the fear. The more fear, the more powerful he becomes. Now that's why he needs the fear, because it actually literally makes him strong.
Okay. So in that case, and you're the lore guy, right? So one of the best parts of having you on this podcast is you can like kind of speak to the lore. I'm very surface. Like I like to take movies for what they're worth and just say, okay, as a standalone, if I didn't know anything about vampires or I didn't know anything about werewolves, does this movie hold up? And for me, a lot of movies do, especially horror films. Like the lore is less important to me, and it's more about like the presentation, how well it was done, and how believable it was, and how good the effects were. But this character specifically, Pennywise, has a huge backstory. And I know we we kind of went into it in the last podcast, although we didn't go into it that much. I'm a big Stephen King fan. I read a lot of the books, specifically the books that had to do with this character, even though he was kind of a side character in those movies or in those books. The Dark Tower series, Hearts in Atlantis, The Stand, on and on and on. In every one of those books, this character is mentioned, and they kind of say the same thing, right? Like he kind of like Freddy Krueger feeds off of kids' fear, and the fear that you have makes him more powerful.
Not necessarily only kids' fear. It's just kids are, you could kind of say, his favorite food because they're easier to scare. And children usually have a more intense imagination than adults do. So that's why when he scares children, he just gets more energy from them. But just like you said, we said in previous episodes, the entity Pennywise, Pennywise is what he's called in Derry because there's where he appeared as his clown. But throughout the multiverse and all of Stephen King's works, the entity is mentioned multiple times. I think there's even one book where another Stephen King book, I can't remember which one it was, where one of the characters comes over a wall where something was sprayed on it, where it says Pennywise is still alive. I don't remember which book it was. No? And then it's also there are
Atlantis.
What? That was Heart of Atlantis.
Yep.
No, exactly, where it says Pennywise is alive. No? And there's actually kind of the thing that it is actually literally not possible to kill Pennywise because it's never really discussed actually what he is, just he is clearly a very extremely powerful entity. There are only two other entities in the entire Stephen King multiverse that are equal to Pennywise's power, and one is the turtle, his sibling. No? That's the only creature that Pennywise is actually afraid of. And I guess whatever entity spawned Pennywise and the turtle. Not that too. I'm not entirely sure what their names are.
That's supposed to be the maker. They talk about that in the Dark Tower series, which the maker is like God. Which, spoiler alert, the Dark Tower series, God actually ends up being the main character in the Dark Tower series. So Roland Deschain, who's the main character of the Dark Tower series, is actually God. He's the one who spawned the turtle. He's the one who spawned Pennywise. It's a convoluted mess, but if you put it all together, then you get the full story of Pennywise. This character is extremely powerful, which is why it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that these kids are able to kill him. But I don't think they killed him.
No, they don't. They don't. No,
because he's eternal. He says it himself. I'm eternal. Can't kill me. I would think of it as kind of like a video game. Yeah. Kind of like a video game bad guy where he has different forms,
Exactly. That's pretty much what it is. Pennywise is not the turtle. The turtle is just Pennywise's sibling. Just the turtle is the exact opposite of Pennywise. Pennywise is an, malicious entity, while the turtle is an absolutely good and a virtuous entity. The turtle actually wants to bring people joy and enlightenment and all of that. And Pennywise just wants to fucking terrify and kill it.
Yeah. It's kind of like the black and the white, the two opposite sides of the coin, the yin and yang kind of thing. It is interesting though, and I don't know, if you're a Stephen King fan, you can go back and read everything about this character, and it makes this much more interesting. But it kind of also removes the magic. But even now, I'm still, after all of this lore, still completely unsure exactly what deadlights are. But I guess we'll get to that. Anyway.
Yeah, the deadlights,
Yeah, the deadlights. So we're moving now into the next part where we see Richie as an adult, right? So Richie is an adult now, and Richie is much unchanged from the way that he was as a kid. So he is exactly what you would expect him to be. He's a stand-up comedian. He's very good at his job. He has a lot of followers and a lot of admirers. He has his own show, which kind of resembles something probably like the Tonight Show in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. Stand-up comedian. So we get to see him on stage. He tells a few jokes. Audience is going crazy. The show's over and he heads back to his apartment. It's obvious that the guy's famous. When he gets there, he pours himself a drink and then he gets a phone call. We already know what this phone call is. It's the librarian calling him and saying, hey, guess what? It's back.
It's back. Come over here and get slaughtered.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on. It's time to get murdered. He's like, are you absolutely sure? He's like, yes, 100% sure. And there's already been multiple deaths. So it's almost like he knew Richie might need a little bit more convincing, right? But Richie's like, okay, I'll see what I can do. He doesn't say I'll come, but he says, I'll see what I can do. Hangs up the phone. Richie, like we said, is a really successful guy. So he's got a lot of contracts. He's got a lot of shows. You get the idea that this guy is wanted for everything and every show and everything you could possibly imagine. His manager is standing there because his manager is probably around him 24/7. And his manager's like, who was on the phone? He's like, nobody, but I have to go. And the manager's like, the fuck do you mean you have to go? We have this show and this show and this show. And by the way, you have to meet this person. And by the way, you have an interview at this time. And he's like, yeah, cancel it all. I got to go. Manager asks him again. He's like, look, man, we've known each other for years and we've been through a lot together. You got to tell me what's going on. This jackass just puts on his sunglasses. Like, what? He puts on these dark sunglasses over his eyes and looks at him. And the manager's like, and then runs out. I'm like, what the fuck was that? Manager storms out. Richie takes back off his sunglasses and looks at the ground and immediately hears a growl, right? And this growl is not the growl of like Pennywise. It's the growl of this horrible fucking sounding monster.
Yeah.
And then you get immediate flashback to him as a kid being attacked by a werewolf that looks like the Wolfman from the movie I Was a Teenage Werewolf. And this brings back, so that's kind of a flash in his head, and that brings back some trauma. So he heads immediately into his bathroom, and the trauma is so bad that he starts throwing up in the toilet, right?
Throwing up, yeah.
And then we get a flashback of him as a kid. And this is all of the kids, all of his friends. They're back in the park where they were hanging out and they made the dam and they're talking. And I think this is the scene where not only do they have the dam and the water set up, but they've also got kind of a makeshift hut in the woods that they're hanging out, kind of like a fort. And while there's part trips me out, dude. While they're sitting there, this fucking cop is like on top of the bridge looking down to where they are. And he's this fucking, I don't know why people did this in the 90s and 80s, dude, but every cop, for whatever reason, had an Irish accent. Fucking stupid movie thing. He's like,
I don't know.
what are you kids doing down there?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is, why Irish accent? These are all people from the States, you know? Right. So, yeah.
But it's kind of a toss back to New York and to Boston, which Maine is not far, right? But Boston and New York, the police department at this time in the 60s was completely made up of Irishmen, because all of them came over on the boat because of the potato famine around the same time that the Titanic disaster happened. And they flooded into New York and they flooded into Boston. The easiest job to get in those cities where they really needed help was the police department and the fire department. So the fire department and the police department in big major cities in that area in the Northeast were almost all Irishmen. And so because of that, every movie that you see from this time frame where there's a cop, they have an Irish accent. That's why that is. So a lot of people don't know that. But if you watch movies about the 60s time frame, almost every cop and almost every firefighter has an Irish accent. Anyway, this cop looks down at him. He's like, oh, would you look at this? It's the entire group of kids and they're doing nothing but hanging out in my field. You got to get up here. So he goes down and he's like, you kids can't be down here. And the kids are like, hey, sorry, we built this dam. We know we probably shouldn't have. And he's like, yeah, whose idea was it? And one of the kids is like, yeah, it was my idea. It's my fault. And then all of them take credit for it. They're like, no, it was my idea. No, it was my idea. The cop's like, okay, I get it. They're kids, whatever. It doesn't matter who did it. But there's an argument for who this character actually is in the books as well. But I'll get into that. He stops and he warns them and he says, okay, it's all right that you're down here, but whenever you come down here, make sure you're down here as a group. Make sure that you are all together when you come down here. Never come here alone, because there's been multiple murders this week and last week, and they're all children. So you can't just be out in the open by yourself. So he comes down and he warns them and he puts out his hand and they all put their hand on top of his hand and he makes them promise that they're never going to go anywhere alone. They all have to go together. This scene happens again in another Stephen King book. And this character, according to the books, is not actually a cop. He's another entity that's out to save the children from Pennywise.
You mean the turtle?
I cannot remember the book. It may have been Hearts in Atlantis. I'm going to have to go look this up. It may have been Hearts in Atlantis, and it may have been the Dark Tower series. I can't remember.
Could be, but if it's another
entity comes back. Huh?
Okay, that's the first time I heard about this, but if it's probably another entity, it's probably the turtle. Pennywise sibling.
It could be, but I mean, if it's the turtle, wouldn't he have like just put a stop to this immediately anyway?
Good question. I mean, of course, you could get. I think this would start an entirely different argument. No,
Yeah.
If it was the turtle, could he instantly put a stop? Yes, he could instantly kill Pennywise. But
It was
the
the
thing
Dark
is,
Tower series. It was the Dark Tower series. So
yes,
he's not.
okay.
He's not the turtle. He's one of the low men. You know who the low men are, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So the reason he did this is because the more children death that happen in this particular universe, according to Pennywise, breaks the beam. So there's a beam that holds up this universe, and the more child death that happens, according to Pennywise, those souls cause the beam to break, which breaks the barrier between this universe and every other universe, which is what happens at the end of the Dark Tower series. That's just a little bit of fan trivia thrown in here, just so you know this is not actually a cop. This is a low man. Anyway, he makes them promise not to go anywhere alone, and he says, you kids have to be together whenever you come down here. They agree. Next scene is in the lunchroom back at the high school. And in this scene, you get Richie hanging out with the other kids. He's getting his tray full of food, and he's walking back to the table. When that happens, the bullies show up because the bullies are still there to cash in their check from the other day when they got somebody's drink in their lap at the movie theater, right?
Yeah.
So they see Richie, and they're like, you're fucking dead. You're fucking dead. He's got his tray, and he's got his mashed potatoes on the tray, and they're taking the mashed potatoes out of his tray and smearing them on his glasses. Richie is the one kid who doesn't really put up with their shit. Did you notice
he just
that?
fought back. That makes him sympathetic.
Yeah. He doesn't put up with their shit because he's a wisecracker, and he's obviously smarter than the rest of them. And he's always got something to say.
Yeah.
Reminds me of somebody else I know. But
I know what you're talking about.
That's you, Mike. That's fucking you.
Me?
Anyway.
What?
Yeah. That's you and every other fucking ADHD kid I know. We cannot keep ourselves out of trouble. We're always going to say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and everybody's going to be like, "Wow, I can't believe you said that. Are you retarded?" But he's got 3 fucking bullies staring him in the face. These kids are much bigger than him, and they're messing with him. He's like, "Oh, you want to put my mashed potatoes in my face? Fine." So he takes his tray and he shoves the tray right into his face. Fucking mashed potatoes everywhere. Everybody cheers. Everybody in the fucking cafeteria cheers. The bully gets up and starts running after him because Richie backs up to get away from him because he doesn't want to get punched in the face. The bully gets up, runs after him, and slips on the mashed potatoes again that are in the middle of the floor and slides and busts his ass on the floor. Again, everybody cheers. Richie's like, yeah, that's what you get, bitch. Blah, 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 blah. The bully gets back up and kind of flinches at him like this, And when he does that, Richie backs up scared and turns around and runs right into the principal, who has a tray in his hand as well. And he knocks the principal's tray out of his hand. The principal's pissed off. Fucking Richie, go get a mop from downstairs at the janitor's office and come clean this shit up. So Richie's like, okay. He goes down to the basement. Now this is what happens in that flashback that we got earlier that made his adult self throw up, right? This is his flashback. Yeah. He goes into, a boiler room, right? We'll flashback to Freddy Krueger here.
Freddy Krueger, exactly.
Yeah. So Stephenking is a huge Freddy Krueger fan. He always references anything Freddy Krueger in his books and in his movies. So he goes into the boiler room to get a mop, go find the janitor. When the janitor rounds the corner, it's not actually the janitor. It is a wolfman in a janitor's outfit, and the wolfman attacks him, right?
Exactly, yeah.
This is a very scary looking wolfman. This is very well done. Very creepy looking wolfman. They did a good job here. Wolfman attacks him. He manages to kind of get away from the wolfman as it's attacking him. And as he runs away and turns back around to look at the wolfman, it's not actually the wolfman. Yeah. Pennywise being a total fucking troll again. I fucking love Tim Curry, man. Like, I do too, yeah. If you just watch the scenes with Tim Curry doing his thing as Pennywise in this movie, then the movie is great either way. You don't have to see the whole thing. Just watch every clip that he's done that he's in. It's fucking fantastic. So yeah, the Wolfman turns back into Pennywise. Pennywise cracks a couple jokes, says, I'm coming for you. You're going to live with me down here where we all float. You can run as far as you want. I'm still going to get you, right?
Yeah, and then he runs out. Then he runs out. This is the scene. It's kind of funny because Richie runs out into the school cafeteria. Is like, we're all going to die. There's a werewolf in the basement.
Yeah. I love it. He does, because everybody's just sitting there eating, and he runs up. He's like, "We're all gonna die. There's a werewolf in the basement." Everybody fucking laughs at him. Whatever. Yeah, and so he goes back. He's traumatized now, obviously.
Yeah.
Goes back home and lays in his bed and can't sleep all night. His eyes are wide open. I would be scared to death too. It's
Of
pretty
course,
fucked
of
up
course,
what just happened to him. The next scene is we get to see the librarian again for the first time in a long time. And this is a guy who's been calling everybody and telling them that Pennywise is back. He's sitting in the library where he works after hours. There's nobody else there. It's just dark. And he's looking at pictures of them as kids, black and white pictures of all of them together, the Losers Club, right? And so then we finally get a flashback of his life as a kid. Arguably, this kid got mistreated more than any of them did. And it's a wonder that he stayed around. So this kid was subjected to so much fucking racism. He's the only black kid in the school, right? And the bullies and anyone who didn't like black people took it out on him. And it's obvious the entire film. And it's even more obvious in the book. The fact that this character didn't turn out to hate white people is unbelievable to me, because he gets called the N-word by literally everyone in the book, except for his friends in the Losers Club. So this guy also has some type of, I want to say like an extra sense that nobody else does. Like he had this thing that made him stay around because he felt like a guardian of this city. And so that's why he stayed. But he started to put pieces together to exactly what Pennywise was doing ever since he was a kid.
Yeah.
So we see him in school, and there's like, in school when you have to give school presentations about history or, anything like that, he's giving a presentation of the history of dairy. And what he's done is he's mapped out every single time something bad has happened in the history of dairy. And he says 3 instances when he's standing in front of the class. There was a mine collapse, there was a massacre, and there was the burning of a factory where a whole bunch of people died. And he points out in class, these things all happened a certain number of years apart. So it's almost like clockwork. These things happen, what is it, every 30 years? I don't remember, 30?
I think every 27. It's 27.
27, okay. So every 27 years, a tragedy happens. Right. He doesn't know why, but he knows it happens every 27 years. And that in itself is pretty interesting. And so that's what he's presenting to the class. The teacher doesn't find that interesting at all. And she finds it a little bit morbid. So she's like, yeah, thanks for that. That's interesting. Now get the fuck out of the way and let the next person come up here and talk. Nobody's taking this kid seriously. This could be argued that Pennywise's control over the town and the way that people think caused them not to put 2 and 2 together. That these things are happening every 27 years. So that's part of his control. This kid is beyond Pennywise's control as far as that goes. And so he's trying to point these things out to everybody, but nobody's getting it. And so he leaves school. He's got his presentation in his hand and he's walking home. The bullies catch him on his way home, take his book away, his presentation. They call him the N-word. They hit on him. They beat him up a little bit. They force him up against the shop wall and they're kind of holding him down. And the main bully has a cherry bomb. And if you know what a cherry bomb is from like around the 60s, it was even worse than it is now. Like cherry bombs, when they exploded, if you were holding on to it, you were losing a hand. Like these things exploded, right? And it fucking killed a lot of people back then. But he says, I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in your pocket. And so they're forcing him up against the wall and they're about to light the cherry bomb and put it in his pocket. At that time, an adult across the street notices what's going on and screams at the bullies and said, hey, you kids, stop that right now. The bullies turn to look at the guy, and that's when this kid gets away from him. He hauls ass, right? He hauls ass out to kind of this construction area that's got a fence around it, and he's pretty limber. So he climbs the fence pretty quick and jumps over. The bullies are a little bit slower. So they jump over too. Little does he know he's running directly towards the other 6 kids. So he jumps over, he meets the other 6 kids that are there, and they're like, whoa, 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 what's going on? He's like, I'm being chased by these bullies. They want to put a cherry bomb in my pocket. And this is when all the Losers Club are together. Now all 7 of them are together for the first time. This is when all of them are together. And they realize at this moment that they have power together that they didn't have when they're not together. And that's figuratively and also kind of on a spiritual level, as we'll find out later. So they feel this sense of security and they feel this sense of power when they're together. So they all stand up against the bullies. And this is a great scene, Mike. I love this fucking scene.
Yeah.
So they're like, fuck them. They're coming this way. We need to get ammunition. So they head back to like an area where there's a bunch of rocks, and they get a shit ton of rocks and they pile them up and they just wait on the bullies. The bullies show up and they're like, yeah, we're going to murder you guys. And they start coming down the hill, and immediately all these kids start chucking rocks at them, dude. And it's like a fucking, it's like arrows from the sky of rocks that are just pelting these fucking kids. The bullies are like getting pounded by these fucking rocks.
I mean, with rocks, you can really hurt somebody with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like some of these rocks are pretty fucking big.
Yeah.
And they're pelting these kids, and the bullies are running away, dude. I don't want to get hit by a rock either. Bullies are running away, but before they do that, they start throwing rocks as well. One of the rocks hits Beverly in the arm and hurts her. Ben's standing next to her, so he kind of takes care of her. The rest of them keep throwing rocks. All the bullies run away except for the main one, whose name I cannot remember. Again, do you remember the main bully's name? Main bully. Okay.
What? Just call him bully. It's just called
Yeah.
The other guy, he's like the bully and his girlfriends, like that type of
the bully and his girlfriend. All right, so he's the last one left, and he's on the ground, and he's pretty beat up because he's been pelted with rocks pretty fucking hard. He's about to get up and run up the hill and attack the other kids. Ben's not having any of his shit. Ben is the bigger kid that he's been calling fat this entire fucking time. Ben runs down the hill and just fucking tackles him, dude. Like, tackles the shit out of him, gets him on the ground, and just basically beats him up, punches the shit out of him until the bully's not moving anymore. Ben backs up. All the 7 kids come together, and they're like, what are you going to do now? And the bully's like, I'm going to fucking kill you. And they're like, I'm pretty sure all 7 of us could put you in the hospital, bro. So come at me if you want to, right? Yeah. He's like, no thanks. And he turns around and starts running up the hill away from them,
gets out.
and turns back and around and is like, I'll kill all of you. And fucking Ben is like, you need to get some new material. You need to get some new material. And so the bully runs off. This scene was created to show you that these guys have power in numbers. And it's a little bit more than just physical strength. It's also kind of on a spiritual level as well. So they decide they're going to hang out together for forever now because they're safe together. Yeah. So they all get to talking, and they realize that they're kind of all having the same paranormal experiences, right? And
yeah, exactly. That's what I talk about.
And it all has to do with Pennywise and this clown. And so they all mention it. They mention the other things that they've seen, and they put 2 and 2 together, and they realize it's all connected. The reason they do that is because the black kid has pointed out again, hey, whatever this is, it comes back every 27 years. Comes back every 27 years, and terrible things happen when it comes back. And so all of them start talking about their experiences. And I think it's the main character, the writer, goes and gets the family album that he has that has a picture of Georgie in it. And he opens the book, goes to Georgie's picture, and is like, yeah, that's my brother. He got killed, at this time. And I think this was kind of the start of it. All of a sudden, the book that he's holding open starts flipping pages on its own. And he's just holding the book while it's flipping pages. And it flips to one page of basically a circus that's, well, no, it's not a circus. It's like a town street, probably back in like, I want to say the early 20s, right? Probably the 20s.
Yeah, that fits. I think early 20s.
And so there's
20s, 30s,
kind of circus,
I think kind of fits it. Yeah.
Yeah, 20s, 30s. There's like a couple circus performers jumping around. There's a guy on stilts. But then the picture starts moving. So it's not just a still frame picture. The picture starts moving. So you see an acrobat flipping across the screen. You see a guy with balloons. And then you see a fucking clown in the distance, right? And the clown's doing backflips. And it's doing more and more backflips closer and closer to the camera that took the picture. And then it stops and it looks up and it notices the kids that are looking at the picture and runs straight for the kids and jumps up on a lamppost that's in the forefront of the picture and starts talking to the kids. And he's like, you get the idea at this point that Pennywise is pissed off. Like, he's no longer Mr. Nice, happy, like funny clown. Like, he's pissed. Like, he's like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to eat you, and you're going to live with me down here
there's
forever,
nothing you can
and
do
you're all
about
going
it,
to float. He's really fucking angry. There's nothing you can do about it. Yeah. He's really fucking angry. And this freeze frame right here of his face is the one that you see the most, like on the internet or anytime somebody's talking about Pennywise. This fucking angry face of him, like clutching this fucking street light, right? He's like, I'm going to kill you. There's nothing you can do about it, blah, blah. Kids are scared to death. They throw the book down, and they're all of the opinion now that what they're seeing is real, that this thing is out to get them. and that it's going to kill them, and that if they don't stop it themselves, it's going to continue, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, these kids have no idea how to stop it, and they're very hesitant to do anything about it. One, they don't know how to stop it. Two, they're scared to death. The only thing that changes that is the main character, the writer, kind of breaks down and says, you know, this guy killed my brother. He's killed a bunch of other kids. I want revenge. I want to kill him. And so he runs out into the woods and he starts screaming at the sky, and he's like, where are you? Where are you? Come out now. I want to see you now. Like, he wants to fight. And so that convinces the rest of the kids that they want to help him and that they want to fight and kill this thing, right? It's arguable if that's such a smart idea. I'm not really sure if I would want to do that.
Actually, it's everything but a smart idea.
Like, I'm not really sure if I would have done this as a kid, but whatever. The next scene we get is of I think there's one more guy that has to be called, right? To be able to, so that the librarian can tell him, hey, it's back. But I can't remember his name. Anyway, the seventh kid. Stan. So Stan,
Yeah.
we see Stan now as an adult. And Stan lives with his wife in Atlanta, Georgia. And it looks like a pretty fucking normal life. Like, this is 1990. They're watching TV on their couch. He's happily married. He's reading his newspaper. It looks like a great life. Like, and I think they did this on purpose, especially because of what happens to this guy. This guy was living his life fine, trauma-free, very happy, funny, nice guy. This is what you get from this scene. He jumps on the sofa with his wife and gives her a big kiss, says, I love you, and I'm so happy we're together, blah, blah, blah. Then he gets a fucking phone call. Phone call is the same as everybody else's that they got. Hey, Dan, it's back. This guy has a completely different reaction to this news than any of the other ones did. Of course, he's shocked, just like the rest of them were, but his face goes from happy to scared to death. Like, if you could literally do this, that's exactly what happens. Like, he goes paper white, scared to death, and he can barely talk on the phone. And says, it's back. You made a promise. Are you going to come back? He's not really even answering him on the phone. He's like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. And he's not really coherent, and he wants to get off the phone with the librarian. And the librarian asks him one more time, are you going to come back like you promised? And he says, yeah, I guess I'll get back to you on that, and hangs up the phone. When he hangs up the phone after that, we get a completely different guy. His wife is asking him questions about who was on the phone. He doesn't want to answer her. He's kind of in a daze. And he says, I'm going to go take a shower. And his wife's like, what, now? Like, right now? Like, what the fuck? He's like, yeah, I'm going to go take a shower. And he goes. He goes and he turns on the water in the shower, and he stands there and he takes off his bow tie and he starts taking off his shirt because he's going to get in the shower. And then, of course, he has a flashback just like everybody else does, right? And so the flashback of his childhood is a little bit different. Like, he's the one who I'm not really sure he believed when he was a kid. Like, because a lot of these things didn't happen to him the same way they did to the other kids. Like, he heard it from them and he heard what was going on, but he didn't really believe it quite like the other kids did because he didn't have trauma like they did.
Until the confrontation with Pennywise. No.
But he goes along with it.
Until the end, until the confrontation with Pennywise. No?
But that doesn't happen until later. Like, we don't get to see it here like we did with the other kids. So his confrontation with Pennywise comes much later, and you kind of feel like it comes after this scene that we're seeing now. So the scene that we're seeing now is when all the kids have gotten together back in their little park area where they meet up, and they're all discussing what they're going to do to get rid of Pennywise. And so they all start trying to figure out who's the best shot with rocks, because they have a slingshot and they have rocks. And they're shooting rocks at bottles, and everybody sucks at this. I don't know if you did this when you were a kid, but hitting anything with a slingshot, if you're not practiced, is pretty fucking hard. And so they're trying it out, and nobody's hitting shit. I think one kid hits one bottle out of 10, and everybody else has the same kind of luck. The girl, on the other hand, hits 10 out of 10. Like, she is a crack fucking shot with this slingshot. She breaks every fucking bottle, and that's really strange. So the rest of them are like, hey, it's almost like you were meant to do the shooting, Like, everybody's got to have some gift that can take this guy out. So they all agree that she should be the one that takes the slingshot. Because of, I don't know why, because it's not in the book either, Silver hurts Pennywise. Why is that, Mike?
I can't tell you. Why does Silver hurt Pennywise? I don't know. It's generally a thing
not in the book either.
Yeah, I mean, silver is just a typical kind of metal that a lot of people believed was hurtful to several different monsters or supernatural beings. That's why always when you have movies or stories about supernatural beings, silver is always the kind of element that is always one way or another harmful to them.
Okay.
What sometimes is, I mean, werewolves, vampires is the most obvious one. But even other entities, I think goes back to that even in medieval times, a lot of people always believed that silver had a cleansing, what's it called? Wirkung, no? A cleansing effect, no?
Yeah.
That silver had because it was a pure metal or whatever. So specifically because it was believed that it had a cleansing effect that automatically is harmful to entities or evil beings, I guess. That's the only thing I can trace it back to. But lore-wise, in the story itself, no. I mean, I can only explain it together if you just take like what picture silver has in a lot of old folk tales, what people used to believe in medieval times. When you're fighting evil beings in one way or another, silver is always an element that always pops up. Like crosses, holy water, sunlight, fire. You know, those are like just like typical things that always pop up that are harmful to supernatural evil beings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's as far as I remember, it's not in the book. I haven't gone back to look, but I have a pretty good mental image of what's in the book, and there was no silver in the book. I assumed maybe they did it because the thing turned itself into a werewolf, and they assumed maybe because of that silver would hurt it or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so one of the kids pulls out melted silver rocks. Basically, they melted. I want to say it's probably like silverware or something that they melted down into like rock-sized things. And they give it to Beverly, and they say, "Hey, when you hit it with this because silver hurts it." Beverly's like, "Okay." So she takes that, and then they decide to head into the sewer. They know the sewer is where the thing lives because every time they're around a sewer, or every time this thing has showed up, it's been around a sewer. Plus, Ben saw his father hanging out at the sewer, and Ben's father was like, "Hey, this is where I live now," before he turned into Pennywise. So they head down into the sewer. The bullies are also heading down into the sewer because they're following them, and they're like, "Hey, they're going down in the sewer. We're going to get these guys." So the bullies are following them. They go down into a drain pipe that leads to the lower sewers. The bullies only send one bully, and that's Belcher, the guy who always burps. There's like one of them who just burps in everybody's face, and I guess that's his like uh bully phase kite or whatever. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's his power, right? He burps in people's faces. Fucking idiot. So they send him down into the sewer, and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna follow them. You're gonna scare them back up here to us, and we're gonna beat the shit out of them." So Belcher goes down into the sewer right after them. These kids get down into the sewer, and the minute they get there, they notice that there's a pom-pom laying on the ground, which is the thing that's on Pennywise's costume, right? It's laying on the ground, so they know they're in the right spot. They know Pennywise is close. They get down there, and they start looking around. The bully is also down there, and he takes another turn, not the turn that the kids took, but he takes another turn. And when he turns the corner, he notices there's a pipe, and the pipe underneath him, where the sewer grate is lighting up from the front of the room closer to where he is. So Pennywise, when he travels as light. And I think these are the dead lights that everybody's talking about, right? So I think he kind of morphs into light and travels from one area to another. And so he's heading towards that bully, and he pops out of the sewer grate, although we don't see him, but he pops out of the sewer grate and attacks the bully. That's the last time we see that bully. So he's attacked. Then we flash back to the kids who are kind of still going through the sewer to try to find where Pennywise is. I think Stan gets picked off by the other two bullies, right? So the other two bullies are down there. They see Stan before they see the rest of them, and they grab him. And it's one bully and the main bully. And they've got him up against a pipe with a knife, and they're telling him, "I'm going to kill you. I'm sure it was your drink that landed in our lap, and before you die, I want you to know that's why you're dying right now, is because you fucking kicked your drink down on us." As that's about to happen, you see the light across the room and another sewer pipe heading towards where they're standing, right? And it's a good scene. Like for the special effects at this time, it's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So the light is heading towards them. The pipe busts open. There's no Pennywise there, but it's light, and it grabs one of the bullies and yanks him into the pipe. And it's kind of cool how they do it because it grabs the bully ass first and pulls him into the pipe. So his feet are sticking out and his head is on top of his feet and he's being dragged back into the pipe like that. And so now that fucking bully's going, right? And now it's just the main bully and Stan that are left, and they're both scared shitless, so they run as far as they can, right?
No, Stan runs, but the bully. Stan runs, but the
Oh,
bully.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like the scene where I say like the lights. The lights, these are actually the dead lights. Pennywise's true form. That's what we're seeing here now. And it's like so terrifying that the one bully, his hair instantly turns white and he goes crazy.
Yeah,
just
insane.
by looking at him. No, so this is why he just instantly loses his mind, and Stan looks at him but kind of breaks free and then just runs towards the other kids. Yeah.
I don't think Stan got a full view of the lights. I think he saw it coming and he took off before he could see the lights. And the bully saw the lights and, like you said, turned his hair completely white. And that's the last fucking time we see him until the future when they're older, right?
Yeah, because that was the reason why Stan had his reaction, why he was so extreme, because he was the only one of the kids that saw the dead lights, although that actually saw Pennywise in his true form.
Yeah, that's what it was. There's also, and I don't know if we see it in this half. I think that's right. We see the next flashback on the second half when we do part 2 of the other thing that this kid saw, right? But this is the first time that we see him have any interaction with Pennywise. So he basically saw the deadlights a little bit, but not really. Stan runs back and meets up with the other kids, and they're kind of in an area in the sewer where all the pipes run together in the ground in this canal where there's a big circle where the water drains into, right? And so they're down there. Stan runs into the room, and Pennywise is following him through the pipe. And so the light is right behind him. And so he runs into the room. There's a big loud crash because the pipe busts open. That crash is enough for all the kids to fall over on the ground and not get a look at the deadlights. So they all hit the ground and they're all looking at the ground as Pennywise flies over them. And we get kind of a little bit of a view of Pennywise, but not the clown. We get kind of a view of the underbelly of this creature. And we're not sure what the creature is. We know what it is later. But right now, all we see is its underbelly, and its underbelly looks like a series of scales that are all lit up. And those are the deadlights. None of the kids get to see the deadlights. Pennywise just escapes into another pipe and disappears. And they're like, what the fuck was that? What just happened? Nobody knows. They're all standing there, and now there's mist everywhere, right? So this area where they're standing, there's mist and fog everywhere, and they're all scared to death. And so they all grab hands around the circle, and they're standing there shivering to death. All of a sudden, out of one corner comes a voice, and it's Georgie's voice, the kid from the beginning of the movie that got killed. He calls to his brother, and he says, hey, I'm dead, and I'm stuck down here because of you. It's your fault I died. You should have gone outside with me. It's your fault I'm dead. Of course, his brother is like, completely overcome with grief by this and tries to talk to Georgie. The girl says, hey, that's not your brother. That's Pennywise. Snap out of it. So he snaps out of it and says, you're right. My brother's dead. That's not him. All of a sudden, the other kid, whose name I forgot, the comedian. Richie. Yeah, Richie's standing there and he's like, yeah, you should know better than that. And this is a funny scene. He's like, yeah, you should know better than that. This thing just tricks you. And from behind him on his shoulders, you see these fucking werewolf claws come up and grab him. And he's like he's scared to death. And everybody's like, no, dude, that's Pennywise. That's not a werewolf. Calm down. If you're not scared of it, it can't hurt you. And so with these werewolf claws on his back, he's like, okay, you're right. It's not real. It's not real. I don't believe it. And you see the claws start to fade away. So this is where you start to understand that if you're not scared of this thing, if you don't show any fear, it has no power to hurt you. And this is something that's probably the first time we'll probably have to wait for the series to come out because the series is going to tell us more. That this is probably the first time in the history of mankind that anybody's figured out that this thing can be defeated by you not being scared of it, right? And so the werewolf claws start to fade away because he shows no fear of it. So they're all standing there in the circle. Pennywise has now realized that these kids aren't scared of him. So he quits playing the parlor tricks and then just shows himself, right?
No, not
and
before.
So when he
before
shows
have
himself,
the scene where they're all holding hands now. Shortly before that, they're standing in a circle holding hands, chanting something. Then comes exactly what you say now, where Pennywise, goes back into clown modus.
Yeah, so the thing that Stan is chanting is a Boy Scout's creed. It's a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. So he's chanting that over and over because he figures if he does that, that it can't affect him. And he's right. It doesn't bother fucking with him. But as they're standing in the circle, Pennywise, this is a cool scene. He just pops up right in front of Stan, grabs him by the shirt, and forces him against the wall. And he's holding him against the wall, and he's like, "This is it. You're all dead. You're all here now, but first I'm going to eat this guy." So he's pointing at Stan, right? When this happens, the sickly kid, asthmatic boy, suddenly gets like this like surge of courage, I guess, out of nowhere, but whatever. And he's like, oh. He takes his inhaler and walks up to Pennywise and says, "This is battery acid," and sprays him in the face with it, right? Immediately, Pennywise recoils and his face starts melting, as if it were actually battery acid that hit him. So now you understand that if Pennywise has no idea what you're doing, he also believes that what you're doing can hurt him. So this clown is just a manifestation of Pennywise. This is not the actual Pennywise. But because this is not his true form, if you believe strongly enough that what you have affects him, then it does affect him. So he sprays him with the inhaler, says it's battery acid, and his face starts melting. As his face starts melting, the girl pulls back on her slingshot with a big like rock of silver and lets it go, and it hits Pennywise right in the head. When it hits him in the head, that piece of his head falls away and light starts beaming out of his head. So basically all Pennywise is the dead light. Like he is a spiritual form of energy that is soul sucking. When that happens, Pennywise realizes that he is overwhelmed, like completely fucking overwhelmed, and he doesn't stand a chance against these kids. One, because they have no fear of him anymore, and two, they're attacking him. So this is like not shit that he expected at all. So he makes a quick fucking exit from the room by jumping over the kids and heading straight down the drain. As he's heading down the drain, these are not great effects, by the way. I want to point that out. Like these effects are pretty bad, but for a TV movie, whatever, dude. 1990. Okay. His hand is hanging out of the drain. That's the last thing to go down. Stan reaches over and grabs his hand, and then the other reaches over. All the rest of them reach over and grab his hand and try to keep him from going down the hole. As they do that, his white glove comes off, and it's a fucking like almost. It looks like a fucking lizard hand or a monster hand or
Lizard
something.
hand is the most faint thing.
Lizard hand, yeah. And it opens its hand, and then that's kind of when you realize also he can take the form of whatever he wants to take. So everything these kids have been seeing, the werewolf, Ben's dad, the clown, everything is just a manifestation of whatever he wants to look like. He can take any form he wants. So the hand pops out and he goes down the drain. That's the last time you see Pennywise. As far as these kids are concerned, they've defeated him. And now they understand how to defeat him. They don't think they've killed him, obviously, because he escaped, but at least they know how to stop him. And so these guys feel like a sense of empowerment, and they feel like, okay, if this thing ever comes back, we're the only people that can stop him. So they leave and go back outside of the sewer treatment plant, and they're all standing outside. And this is where you get the promise that they all make to each other. And the promise is, if this thing ever comes back, no matter when that is, our promise is that we're all going to come back and defeat him again. So they all make that promise to each other. And this is where we see them as kids for the last time, right? So this is them as kids. And after this, they all go their separate ways, except for the librarian, who stays in Derry because he feels like it's his responsibility to be there in case the thing comes back, right? Yeah. So he stays. And that is the end of Act 1. So that's where that ends.
That's the end so far.
So, like I said, this movie is like 3 hours and 7 minutes. So we're going to do the It episode in 2 episodes. And trust me, you'll thank us for that, because if we had to do this for like another 2 hours, we'd be falling asleep.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, that's it's like instantly when I watch this, it's like I think this is a cut version because I think the uncut is even longer because it goes like 4 hours. I don't know.
There's an uncut version of this?
Yes, there is an uncut version, I think.
No shit.
There's a longer version, I think. I'm not sure. I might also be remembering something wrong. But I just remember when we watched it, it's like, shit, this is over 3 hours, the movie alone. And I thought, okay, I think we're definitely going to have to split this up into 2 episodes because otherwise we're going to have like a 5 hour, we're going to have like a 5 hour YouTube.
Yeah. But you see here, Mike, like there's not a whole lot that happens in this. Like as a movie as a whole, there's not a whole lot that happens. It's more story than action, and they were able to make a 3-hour movie out of this. Now, to watch this thing in one sitting like we did before we decided to do the podcast is already hard as fuck. So my question is, how, when they did the reboot, did they get a 4-hour movie out of this fucking thing? Because they did. Yeah, there's 2 parts, and both of them are over 2 hours long.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, because
there's not that much material in the book.
Yeah, well, they extended it a lot. They put more action into it. No, they extended the scenes, specifically in the first part. No, and they did it pretty much into detail. They just invented stuff onto what was in the book. They expanded it, you can say, more or less. No, because that's like in the remake. The werewolf wasn't even in the remake. No, it was actually Eddie that was looked up by some old sick whatever thing. No, I don't entirely remember.
It's a leper. It's a leper.
A leper. Exactly.
Yeah.
They're all just
Ben also gets attacked in the library by some burnt person. The fat kid. Yeah. Yeah. He goes into the library, and it's really dark. Yeah, and he gets attacked by some burned person.
Yeah, and you just see that they also create multiple things in the remake that, guys, it's a long time since I read the book. I don't even remember even being in the book, just like the entire, like they have something go back to Native Americans, that they have some kind of ritual they have to perform to defeat Pennywise. For that, all of them need their token and blah. That's an entire storyline that's like, yeah, okay, that has... I do not remember any of that being in the books. No,
it's in the book. It's in the book.
It
wasn't in the movies.
Yeah. That was basically an entire storyline that they pulled out in the remake, the second part, and even in the first part. There the scenes with Pennywise are very dragged out. They're made longer in general. Specifically, there's like an entire scene, even when they go into the house, the old house, where they go down to the sewers, to Pennywise, and on and on and on. These scenes are dragged out extremely long because they have like this entire action horror scene going on with the kids, where they're in the house, where they're not even in the sewer at that point. And then they get into the sewer, and then there's the whole scene that happens with Beverly and Pennywise doing his dancing show theater thing. That's also something that was not in the books.
Which, Mike, did not happen.
No. What? Yeah, it was. There's a lot of things specifically they done, just in the remakes to just drag out the story and make it longer.
Gotta get that money, Got to get that money.
Of course, yeah.
One thing that is a point of contention, and I feel like one of the reasons we wanted to do this is because there's a lot of people with other podcasts that I think a lot of people do these podcasts because they want to have something to do. They're not necessarily like big horror fans, but they do it anyway because they want to have something to do. I am a diehard fucking horror fan. And so one of the reasons I wanted to do this, and one of the reasons you wanted to do this, is because we wanted to talk about the stuff that nobody else is talking about. If you read the book, you know that this scene that we just ended on doesn't end this way in the book, right? Oh, you knew I was going to do this. So in the book, this ends with a group sex scene. Along with this promise that they make each other, they all take turns banging Beverly. And this is an odd thing because it's an odd choice for... I'm not saying anything bad about Stephen King. I'm not, because he's one of my favorite writers. But what a fucking odd choice. That's how they sealed the deal of this promise, is they all took turns banging Beverly in a sewer, which is very strange. I'm very glad that they did not bring that into the movie, at least the rated R version that they put in the theater, because I don't feel like that's necessary. But I think at the time when I was going to read this book, my dad had already read it, and he was like, yeah, read the book. And it was before this came out. And he was like, by the way, when they make a promise to each other after they kill him the first time, just don't read that part. He told me that. He's like, just don't read that part. And of course I read it because I'm an ADHD fucking teenager. Of course I'm going to read what you tell me not to read. And I think at that time I was like, what? Why the fuck would they do that? It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, of course. It's weird. It's weird. Yeah.
It is. It's weird. But I mean, things don't age well sometimes, right? And whatever. Stephen King, good job for making things a little bit weird for everyone who had to read the book. But it was still a great book. Not ragging on you. You're still the king for bringing Evil Dead to the theaters for the first time. So I'm not going to give you too hard of a time. It's Stephen King. What are you going to do?
Of course.
Anyway, after watching this today, the whole thing, I definitely have a different appreciation for the film. I guess you watch something 2 or 3 times and you start to pick up on things you didn't notice before. I actually like this. It is a rough watch if you have to watch it in one sitting. But thankfully for you, we are not going to do that with this podcast. We're not going to go through the whole fucking film. Wait for part 2.
No, that's a bit too much.
You got anything else you want to say about this movie before we call it quits and they get part 2 next week?
So I think so far, for everything that's happened now up to this point, I think I pretty much said everything so far. Yeah.
Okay. In that case, we will see you guys for Stephen King's It's 1990 Part 2 next week. Hope you enjoyed the episode. I'm Matt.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm Mike, and see you guys next Monday.
See you guys next Monday.
The black skies, the dark skies.